We're currently holed up in a hotel room. I think we're safe here. My friend went to find food and I told her she shouldn't leave the building. I hope she listens. I'm writing this up in case we don't make it back, so maybe people will know what happened to us. It's looking a little bleak right now. My phone and laptop are showing that there's no Wi-Fi or data connection, but I called 911 earlier anyway, and I didn't get through to a dispatcher, but I did connect to someone that said they could help get this email out of here. They can't help us escape, so I guess I have to be content with just being able to send messages for now. We took the Rock Island line into Chicago and got off at 35th. My friend doesn't live in the city. She lives outside it. I live in another state entirely. I visit about once a year, and we go into Chicago and eat lots of food and go to the Art Institute. She has a membership, and then she tries to get me drunk at the bars and usually succeeds. It's easier to use mass transit rather than try to navigate Chicago traffic and pay for parking. I struggle with the trains inside the city. The smaller ones sway, and the motion, especially around turns, feels like when my car rolled after being hit on the highway by someone texting while driving. I struggle to keep my breathing under control and to not cry. My friend understands. She's the one that pays attention to what station is next and when we need to get off, so I can focus on staying calm. I guess that's why I didn't notice anything weird when the Red Line train descended underground. I was too busy trying to breathe in and breathe out, and my friend was telling me I was okay. She has this real casual tone of voice she uses. It does help. I remember how the train descended down, the slope of the ground to either side as the earth opened to swallow us up. Then we were plunged into darkness, encased in the narrow tunnel, with only the light inside the train to illuminate the walls that pressed in close to the window, opposite where I sat. We were the only ones in this car. I remember that clearly, because at the time I was glad that no one else was there to witness my struggles with trauma. In some cultures, any descent into the earth is considered entering the realm of the dead. I'm not sure if we're in the realm of the dead, but we passed through to somewhere when the train carried us through that darkness, rattling and shaking and screaming with the force of its own passage. When we exited the train, we were on an eerily deserted platform. This wasn't strange to me, as it was early on a Saturday, and I suppose the train was more commonly filled with commuters that worked in the city. Then we emerged into the city, and my friend set our luggage down, and we stared at a Chicago that was not the city we knew. The sky was black. There was no sun, no moon, no stars, merely an endless stretch of darkness that strained the eye and stretched on endlessly. It was an effort to tear my gaze away. I felt like I was falling, staring up at an infinite dark, searching for a hint of the sun, a hint of shape. I'm not sure where the light came from. The entirety of that awful sky, perhaps, a pale glow that wafted over the city. Terror nestled in my stomach at the first sight of that unnatural sky, a realization that something was horribly, horribly wrong. I sought for some scrap of normalcy next in the buildings. The skyscrapers laid down at us as shattered, hollow husks. Blackened green-blue glass masked the interiors, glittering in the absent sun, like the eyes of an insect. The masonry was blackened at the edges, as if by soot or charcoal, and the rest was the ivory white of bone, riddled with lines of shadow. We realized that the white was bone when we got close to one. Layers and layers of bones packed tight against each other, femurs stacked against ribs, finger bones lined up in rows. It was methodically, purposefully done. The bones were aligned vertically, but they could not sit flush, so the lines swayed, twining together in their ascent to the heavens. Thick pieces of charcoal filled in the gaps, and it flaked off at my touch. My friend suggested we find a hotel room. We could leave our luggage there, at least, and not have to haul it around while we searched the city for an explanation. I didn't have a better idea, so I agreed. We were staying in the Hyatt Regency along the Riverwalk, within easy walking distance of Millennium Park. My friend had won a free room from a raffle at her workplace. The lobby was huge and lit by the muted sunlight that dipped in between the vertebrae that hung in lines across the ceiling. Whale bones, my friend mused. She couldn't think of anything else that big. So far, we had not seen anyone else in this other Chicago. It came as a surprise then, to find someone waiting at the reception desk. I don't think it was actually a person. A reflection of one, perhaps, or merely someone's shadow. They were featureless, a mere outline of a human being, with their body consisting of black lines, tightly spaced, like they'd been filled in with a coloured pencil. My friend hesitated a moment, and then slid our voucher over. It came with a free breakfast, she said, and I wanted to laugh at the absurdity of pointing that out. Here we were, lost in a Chicago built of bones, and she was reminding someone that wasn't a person, like we knew, that we were entitled to free breakfast. My shoulder was getting tired at this point from carrying my luggage around, so I walked off to set it near the edge of the balcony. Then I went downstairs to get a better look at the buildings across the river. I stared out through the glass front wall, towards the street. A thin sliver of the river was visible. We'd seen it on the way in, the water perfectly still, black with a sheen of silver like tar. I wanted to find a way to get down to the river's level, to see if it was water or something else. My friend came to stand beside me. She was done with the receptionist and had room keys and breakfast vouchers. The latter impressed me. We stood there in silence for a few minutes, staring at the city, and my friend pointed at some movement near the door of the lobby. A valet, also cut out of black lines, featureless and lacking all depth. It seemed that light vanished once it touched its form. It moved back and forth between the drive and the doors, pausing in the middle of the road a moment, arms outstretched, as if picking something up, and then returning to the rotating glass doors. It would stand there another handful of seconds, not entering the building, and then return to the drive to start over again. It would stutter every few minutes, like watching a video buffer. "I think we should go to the Art Institute," my friend said. "Can you imagine what it looks like?" I didn't reply. A sense of unease was prickling up my spine, and while I was hard-pressed to name the source, indeed, everything about this Chicago made me uneasy, there was a sense of immediacy to this feeling. There was a noise outside, growing steadily louder. A rasp, like a metal sheet being dragged across the pavement. I winced and shifted uneasily. "It's getting louder," I said. "We should go." "Just wait," my friend said. "We're inside. It's fine." And the noise grew deafening until I covered my ears with my hands, and then the pavement outside began to turn black in streaks and puddles, like a giant bottle of ink was spilled out and was running across the asphalt. The valet continued its ritual, unloading cars that weren't there and ferrying bags that didn't exist to a rotating door. The darkness spread out beneath his feet, and then something crawled up out of it. A hand first. Human, the size of a basketball, the skin ashen grey. It transitioned into that liquid darkness, halfway up the forearm in lines that reminded me of circuitry, growing denser until they all merged into a black that lacked contour, lacked depth. Like it ate up the muted light, and that hand splayed its fingers on the ground and pushed, and the rest of the creature emerged. It was as big as a semi-truck. Its head was a wedge, and while I couldn't see the eyes, a multitude of them, haphazardly arrayed like scattered pearls, I knew they were there. I felt them glittering. Its legs were like those of a wolf, 6 in all, and its tail was long and thin, and its entire body dripped black liquid, like it was melting. Its head split, teeth like columns, and its neck extended, and it bit the valet in two. Swallowed, and the darkness covering up the ground merely absorbed what was left of the valet's body. I tried to speak, tried to tell my friend we needed to run, but my mouth was dry, and I felt paralysed by terror. The creature turned its head, and all those shining eyes focused on where we stood. It stared through the glass, past the whalebone, up to where we stood frozen. It shoved its head into the rotating door. Its neck and shoulders bulged like a bloated tick as it tried to force its body inside. The metal groaned as it strained. Its hind legs clawed at the absol for purchase. Its jaw gnashed open and shut, the lips splitting apart like putty, deformed teeth as thin as needles, before its mouth snapped shut again. It made no sound. The only noise was the rattling from the windows, vibrating from the force of its struggles, until it was as if the entire building was shaking, the noise resonating throughout the lobby, bouncing off the windows, echoing in among the whalebones above our heads. The elevators, my friend said. Even if it broke through, it couldn't follow us in those. I ran up the escalator. My friend was slower and I watched from the top, my heart pounding, silently willing her to hurry, to move faster, as the monster continued to search for a way in. It backed out of the rotating door and now raced along the sides of the building, its body rippling like a river, moving far faster than any creature of its size had a right to. It slammed its bulk into the walls. I saw the windows bow and bounce like they were made of rubber, and the entire building creaked from the impact. I hurried ahead of my friend and hit the call button for the elevator. I don't think I've ever had a more nerve-wracking wait. We couldn't see the monster anymore, but we heard the screech as it moved, like rending metal, and felt the blows of its body hitting the building. I don't think it can get in, my friend said. Incredibly, she stopped to grab the luggage. I thought she was crazy to do so, but as we waited for the elevator, my breath coming in shallow gasps, I began to think she was right. The building was flexing under the creature's assault, but it wasn't breaking. Then the elevator door slid open, and we stared at the interior with some surprise. It was chalk white. The walls, the ceiling, the floor. There were no lights and no buttons when I stuck my head in to look. It reminded me of an eggshell, and when I touched the walls, I realized it was an eggshell. The door slid shut as my friend and I stepped inside. I couldn't even see the seam where they'd been, just a pristine wall of white. I think we're going to die here, I said, touching the eggshell where I thought the buttons should go. Maybe, my friend replied, and I laughed nervously. It didn't feel like we were moving at all. I shifted from foot to foot, wondering what we'd do now, how we'd get out, when another blow shook the building. The elevator twisted around us with a shrill scream, deafening, and my friend grabbed me, and I grabbed onto her as the eggshell shattered into pieces, and there was nothing but darkness beyond it. And I closed my eyes and waited to die. Then, silence. I opened my eyes. A landing was before us. The doors were open again, as if they hadn't broken apart seconds ago, and I didn't waste any time grabbing my bag and getting the hell off the elevator. Stairs, I panted as we searched for our room. Somehow we'd come off at the right floor. I'm taking the stairs from here out. We're on the 9th floor. I don't care. I'll crawl up them if I have to. Our room was at least normal. I'm not sure I would have the courage to stay in it otherwise. We dropped our bags and I sat down on the bed, cradling my head with my hands. I wanted to cry, but my friend wasn't crying. She was looking out of the window, and I felt like I had to keep it together too. Panic wouldn't help our situation. A thin screech wafted up to our floor, like it was being carried on the wind. The entire building shuddered. My friend stumbled and staggered away from the window, hastily dropping the drapes. We stared at each other, pale, wide-eyed, and another blow hit the building. It was still trying to force its way in. There was nothing we could do but wait. It continued its assault for another hour. We could feel the reverberations from it hitting the walls all the way up to the 9th floor, and it was like the entire building swayed with each impact. I finally staggered into the bathroom and vomited, either from motion sickness or terror, I'm not sure which. My friend held my hair back, and when my stomach was empty, I rinsed my mouth out and stared at myself in the mirror. I was ghastly pale, and there were blood spots all around my eyes. Then finally, it was gone, and it left an eerie silence in its wake. The city outside was still. There wasn't even the hum of cars, and the whisper of the wind was muted, almost lost under the hum of the air conditioning. My friend called me over to the window, and had me look out to the harbour. The lake was black, but it glittered too brightly for the dilute light that blanketed the city. It reminded me of oil, and she agreed, then pointed to the glow on the horizon. Red-orange, like the sunset. It reminded her of fire, she said. I don't like looking at the lake. It makes me nervous. That's when my friend said she'd go looking for food, and I made her promise to not leave the building. I'm not confident she won't, and after she left, I tried calling 911. I don't know, out of desperation. And someone answered. She seemed amused that I was contacting her through my cell phone, but she believed me when I explained our situation. She said there was nothing she could do for us except provide a means of communication with the outside world. I'm thinking maybe she's a medium of some kind. I don't really believe in that stuff. Well, I didn't, but I guess I do now. Anyway, she gave me an email, and it's not a real email. It's just a name, and said I could send this to her and she would deliver it to anyone I wanted to on the right side of the world. I'm trying not to think of what that means. Those words she used. The right side of the world. She asked if I wanted to send this to anyone in particular, if I wanted to let someone know what was happening. I thought about it and told her I didn't. I don't want my family or friends to know we're trapped in this hellish place. She suggested strangers, and I don't know. I didn't like the idea at first, so she said I could write up what's happened and send it to her and decide later. So that's what I've done. And now that I'm done writing this out, I've decided that I do want to share what is happening with someone else. Literally anyone. Because I'm afraid. And it's just my friend and I don't want to feel so alone.